At my age, I'm still single, and every month my younger sister Emily would transfer money to me. I do have a job, but as a temp worker, it doesn't look great. One day, Emily announced her engagement, and we had a family meeting with both sides. Michael, I heard about you. A loser being supported by his sister. Don't you feel ashamed? Emily's fiancé Kevin, who would soon be her husband, mocked me as he said this. Even though his parents tried to intervene, they seemed to look down on me just like Kevin did. Hey, Kevin, that's rude. His mother, Mary, tried to scold him, but she couldn't hide her laughter. Then suddenly, Emily stood up and looked down at her fiancé and parents. How dare you say that? Michael is actually. As Emily spoke, Kevin began to tremble. My name is Michael, and I'm a 55-year-old bachelor. I work as a temp employee, cleaning the common areas of apartments and condos. On this day too, I was about to clean the entrance of a condo, placing my cleaning tools in the corner. Two men were having a conversation there. They seemed to be staff from the tenant on the first floor. The slightly chubby middle-aged man appeared to be the boss, speaking arrogantly to the other guy. Not wanting to interrupt, I started sweeping the hallway first. Even after finishing everything except the entrance, they were still talking, so I began tidying up the unused cleaning supplies. Waiting for them to finish, then the middle-aged man spoke to me. Hey, what are you lurking around for? Are you eavesdropping on our conversation? Surprised by the sudden accusation, I defended myself. Not at all. I'm just here to clean. I thought it would be rude to interrupt, so I cleaned the hallway first. The middle-aged man cut me off angrily. Oh, so you, a mere cleaner, are telling us to move? He took a step closer and yelled at me. Listen up, I'll teach you something. I'm the president of the company on the first floor. I also live in the penthouse of this building. Someone in a lowly job like you shouldn't be speaking to me. He was so close that I couldn't immediately grasp what he was saying. While I stood there in shock, the middle-aged man took his subordinate and headed somewhere. As they left, the subordinate gave me an awkward nod. But still angry, the middle-aged man yelled, "What are you doing? Hurry up and call a taxi," and disappeared. Was my response wrong? Feeling unsettled and in a terrible mood, I left. Usually, after cleaning, I feel refreshed, but today I felt awful. I walked through the shopping district towards the station. I passed by office workers finishing work and families out for dinner. I encountered many different people. I wondered if there were others feeling as down as I was. I wanted to shake off this bad mood quickly. Autumn had ended, and by the time I got home, it was already dark. As my apartment came into view, my phone rang. The caller was my sister Emily, 12 years younger than me. I felt a rush of happiness at her call. Michael, it's been a while. I have some news. I'm getting married. In a bashful and happy voice, Emily made her announcement. I was so happy for her that I couldn't immediately find the words. That's wonderful news. Congratulations. Tears started to flow from my eyes. Emily and I are the only family we have. Our parents died in an accident when I was in college, and since then, we've supported each other. That day was Emily's 10th birthday. To celebrate Emily's birthday, I went to the department store to buy a present. Michael, take care of Emily for us. Sure. Don't forget to buy the cake. You two are having lunch out, right? Take your time. I waved my parents off with those words. Our parents were very close, and I was really proud of them. After they left, I took Emily to the supermarket to buy ingredients for dinner. Since Emily wanted hamburgers, and I enjoy cooking, I decided to make dinner for us. Returning from the supermarket, I started preparing dinner. Emily was watching TV in the living room when she suddenly raised her voice. Hey, isn't that a road we pass by often? The news was reporting a multi-car pileup. Mom and Dad might be late getting back. I assumed the accident would cause a traffic jam. I hoped that would be the extent of it, but then the phone rang. I had a bad feeling. Emily also looked worriedly at the ringing phone. Hello? Slowly, I put the receiver to my ear and heard shocking news. A drunk driver in a truck had crashed into my parents' car, causing a chain reaction of accidents. My vision went dark. I stood there, stunned by the news of my parents' sudden death. Emily and I rushed to the hospital, but we weren't allowed to see them. The damage was severe, and I understood why they didn't want Emily to see them like that. But that made it even harder for us to accept the reality. I can still vividly remember our parents leaving with smiles on their faces. Emily clung to me tightly while we listened to the police and doctors. Emily was devastated that her birthday had become the anniversary of our parents' death, and from that day, her smile disappeared. Every night, I could hear Emily crying in her room. I had no more tears left, even during the funeral. My heart felt hollow, and Emily's cries pierced me every time. After the funeral, a relative offered to take Emily in. I was about to graduate from college and start working, while Emily still needed a lot of care. The relatives, concerned about how difficult it would be for me, discussed it among themselves. I was truly grateful for that. However, I felt that our family shouldn't be separated. I will protect Emily. I believed I was the one who could bring back her smile, so I politely declined the relative's offer. Emily also refused to leave the house filled with memories of our parents, so the relatives backed off but assured us we could reach out anytime. Just as our parents did for me, I vowed to ensure that Emily would graduate from college. I made that promise to myself. However, losing our parents had a significant impact on Emily's mental state. She became frequently absent from school and had trouble sleeping. As a college student, I could spend more time with Emily, but once I started working, it became harder. Emily, I have to start working in April, so maybe we should start practicing going to school? At my words, Emily burst into tears. No. I don't want you to leave too, Michael. I was just talking about work, but Emily, in her unstable state, panicked. But I couldn't avoid working, and Emily couldn't keep hiding forever. I decided to consult my aunt, Anna. I understand. I can only come once a week, but I'll try to visit as often as I can. Anna worked as a school counselor and was experienced in dealing with truant children. Since I was worried about Emily when my working hours increased, I asked her to check in on Emily from time to time. Listen, Emily. I'm here for you, so don't worry. Let's work together to get back to our normal lives. I patted her head to comfort her. The words "I'm here for you" always together seemed to reassure Emily, and I used them whenever she panicked. These words also expressed my commitment to supporting Emily as I began my working life. Although I had part-time job experience in college, working full-time in the real world was entirely different. I joined an electronics manufacturer as a sales representative. There, I learned many things while being scolded by my bosses and seniors. Customers would sometimes complain, making me realize the challenges of customer service. Honestly, there were times I wanted to quit. But I kept going for Emily's sake. Thinking of her, I could persevere through anything. President Johnson taught me the significance of earning a living, making me value my family even more, and I gradually advanced through hard work. Anna told me Emily was also making progress, which reassured me, but she still had unstable moments, so we always had breakfast and dinner together. While a long-distance truck driving job or night shifts would pay more, I decided to maintain our current lifestyle until Emily entered college. Our life wasn't luxurious, but we managed. To save on food costs, my cooking skills improved significantly, and Emily enjoyed the challenge of making tasty meals on a budget. However, when Emily was about to enter high school, the electronics company I worked for went bankrupt and I lost my job. I wanted to find another job quickly, but permanent positions were scarce, so I ended up taking a temp job as a cleaner. Unlike my previous job, I had flexible hours, directly going to and from cleaning assignments, which meant a lower income but more time with Emily. Since Emily was now in high school, she said, "I'll help out. Leave the laundry to me," and we divided the housework. Emily also started working part-time. Although she had been so depressed that she needed counseling from Anna. She eventually improved and enjoyed interacting with people at her convenience store job. Despite the changes in our lifestyle, we made sure to always eat together. Today is payday, so I bought a cake. We were poorer than most families. But even with our modest life, treating ourselves on payday became our little joy. I wished I could take her out for sushi or a family restaurant meal, but my salary only covered our basic needs. Since Emily started working, she earned her pocket money and managed her school expenses. She also began taking care of the garden our parents cherished, making it look better than when I used to maintain it. Dad and Mom would be so happy to see this garden. Emily smiled at my words. After losing our parents, I wondered how we would manage, but with Aunt Anna's help, Emily regained her smile. I really wanted to send her to a prep school for college. But I was so focused on saving for her tuition that I couldn't afford it, and I once had to bow my head in apology to Emily. "Michael, you don't know my grades, do you?" When she showed me her school test results, I was speechless. Recently, she had ranked within the top 5 in all mock exams. Despite being busy with housework and a part-time job, she managed to achieve such high scores. Emily was incredibly diligent and my pride. I realized she had been supporting me all along. She had once told me she planned to get a job after high school. She probably felt guilty seeing me work hard for her. But that wouldn't do. That would negate my efforts. "No, Emily, you should go to college and study what you love." Looking at me with a troubled expression, I told her. "Japan still values academic credentials, and even with a degree, like me, you could face unemployment if a company goes bankrupt. Life is unpredictable, so go to college." Emily's heartfelt concern touched me deeply. Even though we were living a modest life after losing our parents, I didn't want to limit Emily's future. Then Emily shared her dream with me: "I want to become a nurse." When Emily's college entrance exams started, she quit her part-time job, making our life a bit tougher. She was accepted into university, but with the overwhelming amount of assignments and practical training, we no longer had time for our cherished meals together. Now was the time to persevere. The nursing training was more demanding than I could have imagined, and Emily often came home exhausted, sometimes even bursting into tears as soon as she got home. I told her many times that it was okay to quit if it was too hard, but Emily always shook her head and continued to pursue her dream. Eventually, Emily passed her exams and fulfilled her dream of becoming a nurse. She got a job at the hospital where our parents had been taken and where they had passed away. That day changed our lives. Driven by the regret of losing our parents, Emily pushed herself to save as many lives as possible. To celebrate Emily's achievement of becoming a nurse, we treated ourselves to an extravagant dinner at a fancy sushi restaurant. Although Emily had secretly taken out student loans to cover her tuition, I made sure she had everything she needed for living on her own. "Michael, I'm home. I'll put this here." After starting her job, Emily would always come home on payday. "Since I quit halfway through high school and could only do a little during college," she would say, leaving part of her salary to help with living expenses. Although she had become independent, I always tried to refuse, but Emily insisted, saying it was her way of repaying me for supporting her through college. "Michael, you supported me from your first year as a working adult. Now I understand how difficult that must have been. You gave up your best years for me, and I'm deeply grateful." I had lived for Emily's sake, never thinking of it as a sacrifice. It was my duty as a brother and a family member. But if accepting her money would ease her guilt, I decided to take it. "All right, I'll accept it. But only half." I tried to ease her burden as much as possible. As Emily got busier with work, her monthly visits became less frequent, and she started transferring the money instead. However, we kept in touch through messages. I never expected that the next call I received would be about her engagement. Reflecting on our past, I felt nostalgic. I truly wanted Emily to be happy. She had gone through so much and deserved all the happiness. Emily always smiled, lifting my spirits when I was down. She must have had her own tough times and probably wished her life was more like other kids' homes. But Emily never complained and always expressed her gratitude to me, saying thank you. Tears welled up in my eyes. If I'm this emotional now, I'll probably cry my eyes out at her wedding. The family meeting was set for the following Saturday, and I marked it in my planner immediately. I wondered what kind of person Emily would bring. I was eagerly looking forward to meeting the family who would be living with my dear Emily from now on. The big day arrived. Dressed in a new suit, I headed to the French restaurant where the meeting was scheduled. I usually wore work clothes, so it had been a while since I wore a suit. I checked myself in the mirror multiple times. I prayed for a wonderful day. With determination, I bowed before our parents' altar. Emily and her fiancé were already waiting outside the restaurant. Her fiancé, Kevin, looked very refreshing. Emily, who had been lamenting her lack of good matches, was 43 years old. I was curious about her fiancé's age, but at 45, he was close to Emily's age, which reassured me. Kevin worked at a bank and seemed sincere. They had met through mutual friends at a gathering. With his polite manners and constant smile, I felt confident that Kevin and Emily would build a happy home together. As the three of us enjoyed a pleasant conversation, Emily's fiancé's parents arrived. "Nice to meet you. I'm Emily's brother." I immediately greeted her fiancé's parents and bowed deeply. Then her fiancé's father, John, looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Have we met somewhere before?" Looking closely at John's face, I felt he looked familiar. "Oh!" I exclaimed. I remembered, he was the middle-aged man who had yelled at me while I was cleaning the other day. John seemed to recognize me too and laughed through his nose. "Ah, so you're the cleaner from that time." He then began boasting about himself. "You have a tough job, don't you? Besides that tenant, I also own other companies and run a business in a building near the station." He continued talking about his achievements and income, clearly looking down on me. Emily's fiancé's mother, Mary, sighed and tried to stop him. "Please, let's leave it at that and listen to what the two have to say." Even though she intervened, John seemed displeased and redirected his focus entirely on me. Despite it being a celebration for the two of them, he bombarded me with questions. Although I wasn't feeling great, they were the important family of Emily's partner. So, I answered all their questions. "We lost our parents, but we've supported each other all this time. Emily became a nurse to help others and reduce the number of people losing their lives like our parents. Despite her own challenges, she even contributes part of her salary to household expenses every month. She has a truly kind heart." I shared our story as requested, but the one who reacted was Kevin. "Wait, is that story true?" Kevin laughed, clutching his stomach. "Michael, I've heard about you. A useless man being supported by his sister. Don't you feel ashamed? A sister sending money to her brother. That's unheard of." Kevin mocked me, and I felt a wave of regret for sharing our story. Even though his parents tried to intervene, they also seemed to look down on me. "Kevin, that's rude." Although Mary scolded him, she couldn't hide her laughter. When I glanced at Emily, she was looking down and trembling. She probably never imagined her fiancé could be like this. She seemed deeply shocked. Despite it being a special occasion, I had embarrassed Emily. I couldn't turn back now and felt at a loss. Then Emily stood up, looking down at Kevin and his parents. "How dare you say that? My brother Michael is actually..." Struggling with her words, Emily continued. "John, do you know the name of the building where your company is located?" "Oh, it's the Smith Building. I thought it was a coincidence that it had the same name as yours." John smiled as he spoke, but Emily revealed the truth without hesitation. "Do you know the name of the owner of that building?" "Ha? I don't remember such details." "What does that have to do with anything?" John looked at Emily irritably, and I interrupted, feeling a spark of irritation myself. "Allow me to introduce myself again. I'm Michael Smith, the owner of the Smith Building." The three of them widened their eyes in shock. While working as a temp, I had invested our parents' inheritance wisely. Real estate was one of those investments, funded partly by the money Emily sent me each month. I had planned to give Emily some of these investments as gifts when she got married, and they had grown enough to support me without working. "You've worked so hard. Now, why don't you take it easy?" Emily had also once told me to take it easy, but my nature made me want to keep working. Now, I clean various buildings and condos 3 times a week as requested. That's where I unexpectedly ran into John. Since my company also cleaned his building, I often encountered his employees, but the atmosphere was always unpleasant. And they never returned my greetings. Knowing John was their boss now made perfect sense. Hearing Emily and me speak, Kevin began to tremble and quickly changed his tone. "Oh, I had no idea you were the owner. What a wonderful brother you have, right, Dad?" "Yes, a very respectable man." Their sudden flattery made me feel nauseous. "Really? It's such an honor to become family with someone who put Emily through college." "Indeed. Since we are becoming family, how about a discount on the rent? It was unclear whether he was joking or serious. I'm afraid we don't offer such services. I said this with a serious face and a low voice to the three who were grinning slyly. Sorry, Michael. I accidentally let it slip even though it was a secret. Given the unpredictable nature of life, Emily and I had kept the details of my investments between us. Emily peered at me with a worried look, and I responded with a smile, saying, It's okay, don't worry about it. I mentioned the allowance, so we're even. But it's good this way. We got to see Kevin's true colors and almost avoided a big mistake. Everyone present let out a collective what? Emily smiled brightly and said, Of course, this wedding is off. Kevin and his parents are too much, they would corrupt me too. Seeing Emily so strong, I felt proud. Later, Emily, who had taken some days off, came to stay at our family home. While we were having tea, the doorbell suddenly rang. We rarely had visitors other than deliveries, so I was curious as I went to the door. Opening it, I saw an unfamiliar handsome man standing there. I was about to ask if he had the wrong house, but he spoke first. Excuse me for the rudeness of my parents and brother the other day. I apologize for their behavior. I was surprised he knew about the incident. I'm Tom, Kevin's younger brother. I heard about my brother's rudeness and came to apologize. I am actually the owner of that French restaurant. Emily is here now, please come in. Tom explained that he had been excited when he heard about his brother's engagement celebration being held at his restaurant and had prepared special dishes. However, after hearing about his family's behavior from his staff, he was disillusioned. Tom seemed to be a sensible person and shared how his family had troubled him over the years. As you probably realized, my father is arrogant, my mother just goes along with him, and my brother looks down on everyone. I couldn't stand it and kept my distance by attending a boarding school. He sighed deeply, expressing his frustration with his unchanging family, and then said something surprising. I know it's sudden, but hearing Kevin's story made me realize I need to protect Emily. I've received bragging messages from Kevin about his dates and her cooking. The more I heard, the more I liked her. I was so surprised that my mouth hung open. I know it's not the best timing, but I can't suppress my feelings. Neither Emily nor I had expected this turn of events. I have no intention of associating with my parents or Kevin anymore. If Emily is willing, I'd like to date her, even if we start as friends. Emily couldn't immediately agree, but they began going out as friends. Working as a civil servant at the city hall and later becoming the owner of a French restaurant, Tom had an interesting background. He learned to cook from scratch as an adult and opened his own restaurant, which quickly impressed Emily. A year later. Please allow me to take care of Emily. Tom vowed to cut ties with his family and protect my sister. There was no reason to refuse such a sincere man. So I accepted him. Given their ages, they decided not to have a wedding ceremony and planned a trip around the country instead. Wanting to wholeheartedly celebrate, I paid for the entire trip. Emily's happiness is my happiness. Today, as always, I pray at our parents' altar, wishing for Emily's continued happiness. My name is Tom, and I'm 35 years old. I'm currently working at a local company called a corporation. Originally, I wanted to attend an industrial college, but my parents refused to pay for my tuition. So, I saved up by working part-time whenever I could and managed to go to college. Eventually, I was able to land the job I wanted. Many of my peers had financial support from their parents and were always having fun, making a lot of noise. I bet they never had to worry about money, never had to juggle studying for exams and working part-time. I remember thinking that as I watched them. They were good people, but their conversations were always about girls, darts, drinking, and the cute girls at their part-time jobs. Meanwhile, my small savings from high school weren't enough, so I was always working. We had different topics, values, and financial situations. I was always exhausted from studying and working, so I couldn't really become friends with them. But I couldn't afford to complain about my situation. I knew I couldn't rely on my parents, so I worked as hard as I could. My parents were both remarried, and my sister and I were only half-siblings. My sister, Jenna, was 12 years younger than me. She resembled my stepmother and was both cute and beautiful. I adored her, but I felt like I was only half a part of the family, which made me feel out of place at home. However, my parents seemed to prefer living just the two of them, so they almost ignored us, which minimized the awkwardness with my stepmother. They were always going out together and came home late, so we rarely saw them. While our parents provided for our basic needs, we hardly ever talked. Maybe that's why Jenna and I became somewhat quiet and introverted. As Jenna grew older, she stopped talking to me much and stayed in her room most of the time. I didn't know what she was like at school, but she stopped smiling at home, and I worried about her. I tried to talk to her as much as I could. At first, she seemed annoyed, but I kept trying. I kept the conversations going with simple things like "dinner's ready" or "welcome back," talking about TV shows and little things that happened during the day, just trivial stuff. I made sure never to ask personal questions like how's school or anything too intrusive. That was because, for some people whose relations with friends are not very good, those questions were what they didn't want to be asked. Jenna probably thought I was an annoying brother, but at least I wasn't someone she wanted to avoid completely. Eventually, she started to talk and even smile a bit with me. I disliked our parents, but I loved Jenna. I was happy to reconnect with her. I got a job when Jenna turned 12. If I had really wanted to, I could have left home and lived away from my parents, whom I didn't like very much. However, I felt it wouldn't be good for Jenna's mental health to leave her, who was already going through a difficult adolescence. Alone with our indifferent parents. Our parents only cared about their own happiness and resented spending any money on us. In elementary and middle school, when expenses were low, we managed to live relatively well. But once I reached high school and needed money for tuition and activities, their attitude became increasingly hostile. They were always in a bad mood, and it got worse whenever money was mentioned. Reluctantly, they give me the money, but every chance they get, they make a genuinely displeased face and complain about how much it cost. My parents loved shopping. Mom had a sweet tooth and practically lived for buying clothes, cosmetics, and hobbies whenever she went out. Dad drank a lot and enjoyed socializing, so he often dined out. Because of their habits and Dad's modest income, there was no money left for us to do what we liked. Feeling a sense of crisis about my future, I talked to my advisor and homeroom teacher in high school, asking for permission to work part-time on weekends and holidays. Normally, they would have told me to focus on studying and extracurriculars, but after a meeting with my parents, it became clear they had no intention of paying for anything beyond basic living expenses and tuition. We'll pay for the minimum costs of living for the kids, but beyond that, we don't see the need. They're not small children anymore, they should manage their own expenses. My father said without hesitation. Seeing my father's expression, my teachers understood everything. After my father left the room, the teachers remained silent for a while before simply saying, "Do your best," and I started working at a nearby fast food restaurant. Balancing work with school activities was exhausting. I had to study hard since private schools were out of the question, and I also had to maintain my friendships. In hindsight, being constantly exhausted and too busy to dwell on my drawbacks or lack of friends was a blessing in disguise. Despite always being tired, I managed to live fairly well with Jenna in a house where adults were almost non-existent. One day, when Jenna turned 23, she suddenly told me she had a boyfriend. I was shocked because Jenna had always been shy and unapproachable. Apparently, a businessman who frequented her workplace had approached her. Given that Jenna was undeniably beautiful, it made sense, though I had mixed feelings. "I think you know, Tom, but I hate this house. I've managed to endure it so far because you were here. But now I can't stop the feeling of not wanting to come back here." Even though I've only known him for a short time, he asked me to marry him. I know he said it quickly because he knows my situation. We've only been dating for 3 months, but I want to marry Joshua. I was so taken aback by the surprisingly short duration of Jenna's relationship with her yet-to-be-seen boyfriend that I almost fell over. I understood her feelings. But marrying an unproven man could lead to future hardships for her. "Let me meet him first and then decide if you can marry him," I said, and Jenna reluctantly agreed. "Well, I plan to introduce him to you anyway." "Okay," she replied. Jenna was still just 23. And now, without any professional or romantic experience, she's trying to run away with a man she met just 3 months ago. Thinking of marrying someone without deeply knowing his character is risky, and it's probably because Jenna is still young and naive. Although I don't have a lot of experience, I do have some, and I've heard stories from friends who have had bad experiences with unpleasant women. Because of that, I felt a twinge of unease about Jenna marrying someone she only knew on the surface. Despite my concerns, Jenna seemed happier than ever. Until now, she had been either expressionless or only smiled when talking to me. But now she has a calm expression that anyone can see radiates a pink or light orange aura, and she looks full of life. Seeing her like that, I felt a bit relieved. Surely, he must be treating Jenna well. If that's the case, it should be okay. I thought, looking forward to the day I would meet him. But my hope was about to be shattered. The meeting was set at a fancy restaurant chosen by her boyfriend. Ignoring my warnings, Jenna was set on getting married, saying, "Oh, by the way, the meeting is a marriage introduction. His parents will be there. So please act as our parents." She smiled as she said this. Seeing Jenna's smile, I was starting to feel like nothing I said would matter. I was almost resigned. No, but if he turned out to be a terrible guy, I would have to oppose it firmly. I'm the only one who can protect Jenna. Our parents, who had always been reluctant to raise us, had stopped coming home after Jenna graduated high school. Suspecting something, I checked our family registry. Fortunately, our family ties weren't severed, but our parents stopped coming home entirely. Since Jenna was almost an adult, they had essentially abandoned us. From then on, it was just Jenna and me living together. So, while we were related by blood, we were no longer a family. When Jenna learned our parents had left, she just looked resigned and immediately started looking for a high-paying part-time job. After I insisted she not sell herself short, she ended up working night shifts at a family restaurant while attending college. Because she wasn't very strong, she couldn't work as much as she wanted. So, I covered some of our living expenses with my earnings while she paid for her tuition and part of her living costs. Later, when her job search didn't go well, Jenna decided to take a full-time position at her part-time job. Although the work environment was tough, she preferred it to an office job with desk work, and she seemed to enjoy it. I was proud of Jenna's growth, but I couldn't let some random guy take her away. I had come to feel like a parent to her. For the next few days, Jenna and I were busy with work, and before we knew it, the promised day had arrived. I was so nervous that I arrived at the restaurant 50 minutes early, and Jenna laughed at my awkwardness in a suit. However, her smile seemed forced. She must have been nervous too. Her boyfriend's parents were a big shot at an auto parts manufacturer and a head nurse at a county hospital, a rather elite family. Her boyfriend had also landed a job at a major company in the city. Jenna, clearly nervous, was overly chatty. Seeing her like that made me even more nervous, and we both awkwardly tried to converse. Right on time, her boyfriend and his parents arrived. His name was Joshua. He was tall and slender, with a modern hairstyle that made him look like someone who would be very popular with women. The suit he was wearing was undoubtedly much more expensive and sophisticated than mine. His parents, too, had stern expressions and were impeccably dressed. His father had a harsh, stubborn look that made him seem unapproachable. His mother didn't smile at all and stared at me with a blank, mask-like expression. Feeling intimidated, I greeted them with a smile, and we all entered the restaurant. Even after we sat down, his parents scrutinized me with harsh eyes. Joshua, on the other hand, spoke kindly, "Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming today. I'm Joshua, and I've been dating Jenna. We are considering marriage." I introduced myself, and the atmosphere relaxed a bit. It was Jenna's first time meeting his parents, and she was visibly tense. Then, Joshua's father, Michael, asked, "What a beautiful young lady. Your parents must be very handsome too. Why are you here alone today? Aren't your parents coming?" When I explained, mixing in a lie, that my father and mother were too busy with work to come home often, Michael raised an eyebrow and said, "So, you're saying they are so busy they can't even attend this important pre-wedding meeting for their daughter? No matter how busy work is, they should find a way to be here for such an occasion. How can they prioritize work over this? What kind of parents do you have?" I was at a loss for words, unable to respond to his remarks. He was right. It was strange that our parents couldn't make time for such an important event. As I thought to myself that there was only so much I could do to cover up, I glanced over at Jenna. She looked bewildered, not knowing what to say. Joshua tried to cover for us, "Well, her parents travel abroad often and hold important positions, so they might not have been able to change their schedules. But Michael asked, "So, will they attend the wedding?" Once again, we were speechless. Apparently, Michael sensed something from our reactions. His face quickly turned red with anger, and he said, "What? Are you saying your parents can't even attend the wedding? Such parents might as well not exist. I've heard that Jenna is earning her own tuition and living expenses. Are her parents, who are supposedly in respectable positions, really not giving her a single penny? If it's their educational policy that after high school, she should handle everything on her own, that's one thing. But normal parents, if they have a decent income, would at least provide for their child's living expenses so they can focus on their studies in college. A girl with parents like that is no good. This discussion is over. We don't need a girl with such parents in our family. Indeed, our father was so cold to us that it was as if he had left his heart somewhere else. But Jenna and I had worked hard to make it on our own. Although Jenna has some social awkwardness, she has developed a reasonable level of social skills by interacting more and more with people other than our parents. She is also a kind and just person. Jenna is kind to classmates who feel left out and treats them equally, even when other classmates tend to avoid them. For instance, during school trips and group projects, she would always invite the student who usually got left out before the teacher had to step in, doing so with a smile. That student was on the verge of becoming a truant, but thanks to Jenna's constant companionship and conversations, she managed to attend school every day. When I heard this from her teacher, I was moved to tears. Despite her often gloomy demeanor at home, Jenna had grown into such a compassionate person. Yet here she was, being insulted for things beyond her control. I couldn't stay silent. "Michael, what are you saying? Sure, our parents might be a bit hands-off, but they raised us well. Jenna has always been praised by her teachers for her kindness and thoughtfulness. Just because our parents' approach differs from what you expect. Please don't speak of Jenna that way," I countered. Then Michael said, "Oh? So, your parents will be attending the wedding, right? Even if they are too busy to meet now. Surely they won't skip the wedding. Earlier, when I asked you about this, you didn't answer. Why is that?" He grinned as if he was enjoying himself. Joshua quickly interjected, "Well, you see, her parents are currently involved in a major project overseas and can't easily come back. So, it might be difficult for them to attend the wedding." Michael looked incredulous. "That's unacceptable. No matter how busy they are, parents should be there for their daughter's wedding. You think you can fool me? Your parents have abandoned you, haven't they? That's why they've left you alone. If that's not the case, let me speak with them via video call now." Jenna, following Joshua's lead, said, "Our parents are so busy that they barely have time to contact us. We don't know when they'll be available." Michael retorted, "See? You're trying to keep us from speaking to your parents because you're not in touch with them. You think you can deceive us? But we see through you. I don't want someone without real parents in our family. Am I wrong?" He stared at me with a piercing gaze. I realized it was impossible to deceive him any longer. Moreover, I couldn't imagine continuing a relationship with such an awful family, nor could I allow Jenna to become part of it. We might not have been blessed with the best parents, but we know many kids have had it worse. Working part-time while studying was tough, but I believe I handled my responsibilities much better than those carefree college students. We lived our lives seriously. To have our character judged based on our parents' treatment was too much. Joshua's parents, with their high social status, wanted a perfect daughter-in-law. He was judging Jenna's suitability as a potential daughter-in-law solely based on his perception that she might have mental issues. Just from observing the parents. Just because the parents are flawed doesn't mean the children are too. Of course, having children can bring unexpected challenges. Living with financial constraints can cause dissatisfaction. But Joshua's parents couldn't know Jenna well enough in such a short time to judge her. Michael needed to be taught a lesson for criticizing my sister. I had been smiling inwardly since I learned where he worked. Michael was just about to stand up, as if to say there was nothing more to discuss. To him, I declared, I should have mentioned earlier that I'm the CEO of a corporation. I believe you work for E Corp? Isn't that the company struggling and about to be absorbed by ours? We were just discussing staff reductions. In today's world, you have to stay innovative to survive. You say you don't need my sister, well, we don't need someone with such an inflexible mindset in our company either. Upon hearing my words, Michael froze with a shocked expression for a while. But then he suddenly changed his tone and said, "What? I didn't know. I'm terribly sorry for my rude remarks. Please, I beg you, don't fire me. Yes, I worked in the same industry as Michael, and I was the CEO of a much larger company. After graduating from college, I originally intended to pursue a technical job in mechanical engineering. Upon joining Company A, I caught the attention of the CEO and steadily climbed the corporate ladder. A few years ago, due to the CEO's chronic health issues and the fact that he had no children, I was named his successor. Company A is a large company with about 4,000 employees, quite different from Michael's company. Although Michael's company is not small, it was nothing compared to mine. After that, I brushed off Michael's various attempts to placate me, took Jenna by the hand, and said, "Let's go." No matter how good he is, having such people as in-laws will only make you suffer, Jenna. You deserve someone better. I then firmly led her out of the store. On the way home, seeing Jenna walking slowly and looking very downcast, my heart ached. She had worked so hard her entire life. Perhaps because of our parents, she likely struggled with the difficulty of life. Jenna had finally found someone she could truly trust. I knew Joshua seemed like a good person. But having to deal with his parents during difficult times would be too hard. Because of this concern, I couldn't support their marriage. I had never seen Jenna so down before. While I felt a sense of satisfaction for protecting her from those awful in-laws, I never wanted to see her so sad. Jenna understood the issues with his parents and softly said, "What should I do now?" Joshua was a good person despite his parents. If she was prepared for it, maybe she could be with him. But I couldn't find the answer and all I could say was, "I'm sorry." Sometime later, Michael's company merged with ours, and I decided to fire him. Thinking of himself as an elite and strutting around, he unexpectedly had to end his professional career. It was said that his character was already reputed to be bad, so he never got re-employed by another company and is now unemployed. Rumors said he became self-destructive after losing his job, and his family was falling apart. I felt a bit sorry for Joshua, but maybe this would help him distance himself from his difficult parents. Jenna remained sad for a while but never blamed me. However, as she stopped talking to me, I began to feel sad, wondering if she still harbored some resentment. Even though it was unavoidable, the marriage had been called off. I feel like it would have fallen apart even without my involvement. Seeing Jenna so unhappy made me feel terrible. But then one day, Jenna suddenly said, "I'm sorry for always showing you my depressed side and ignoring you. But I don't think badly of you, Tom. I know you've always tried to protect me. But he's become just as important to me. So I was really down about not getting along with his parents. Recently, I noticed you've been feeling down too. So I felt I needed to apologize." I looked at her in silence, and she continued. "I didn't have many close friends at school, and with parents like ours, I felt hopeless about having any fun in life. Before I started going to school, I mostly only talked to you, Tom, so I struggled a lot when I started elementary school. Everyone else chatted so easily with smiles on their faces. Having been so dependent on you, I didn't know what to do. I was always expecting and demanding things from others, so I couldn't hold a conversation properly for a long time. And home wasn't a comfortable place either, so I had nowhere to relax and got more and more exhausted. As I moved up in grades, people started to see me as the quiet kid. I hated that, but I didn't know how to be more outgoing, and I couldn't break out of that cycle. But you always tried to help me. Even when I spent all my time in my room using my phone as a high schooler, you would come to talk to me no matter how late you worked. Even when I pushed you away, you never gave up on me. At first, I thought it was annoying. I thought looking at my phone was more fun. You saw how Mom only made simple meals and worried about my health. So you learned to cook and made meals with lots of vegetables every day. Even when I didn't know what to talk about and just watched TV. You kept trying to talk to me. Because of that, I slowly learned how to have conversations with people. At first, I was exhausted and thought, please just leave me alone to eat by myself, but gradually, I realized how fun it was to talk to people. I used to think I had to talk about things others liked or about TV shows, but I realized I was overthinking it. The things you talked about were always simple, and talking about those things made my heart feel lighter. That's why, even when school was boring, I could keep going. I really appreciate everything you've done for me, Tom. Jenna started crying, saying she was sorry for everything. I didn't know what to say, so I just hugged her. I could always chat about trivial things, but at a moment like this, I couldn't find the words. I felt like a failure as a brother. As I held her, I kept repeating, "You'll find someone better, Jenna, someone better." Jenna, crying in my arms, said yes and then didn't say anything else. I kept rubbing her back. After some time, Jenna seemed to have recovered, at least on the surface. She went back to her job and seemed happy again. However, perhaps because of what happened before, she turns down every offer from customers. Maybe she still can't forget about him. Despite all my efforts to protect her, this time, I could only watch over her. A few months later, Joshua cut ties with his parents completely, and he and Jenna got married. Even though there are some things I'm worried about, I always tell Jenna to let me know if she ever needs help. If anything happens, I want to assist Jenna as much as I can. We might only be half-siblings, but our bond had deepened because we didn't receive our parents' love. Now, Jenna had someone who would protect her even at the cost of abandoning his own parents. When I congratulated them, Joshua and Jenna smiled brighter than I'd ever seen them smile before. Next year, I'll finally become an uncle to a little girl. Joshua has remained the supportive partner he seemed to be, helping Jenna while working hard himself. I could tell Jenna wasn't suffering because her expression grew more peaceful each time we met. My little sister was going to be a mother. Whether she looked like Jenna or Joshua, their child would be adorable. I imagined myself spoiling my niece with toys and affection. Even before she was born, I was already planning to dote on her. Jenna, noticing my thoughts, smiled happily and said, "Uncle, thanks in advance for everything. Thank you for having us today." After nearly a year, I found myself back in the field of sales. My mouth was going dry as I greeted our client with a hoarse voice. The memory of my failure from a year ago flashed in my mind, making me want to run away. Just then, my female supervisor, Susan, who was standing next to me, gently patted my back. When I glanced at her, she nodded reassuringly, as if to say everything would be all right. Encouraged by her, I put all my strength into delivering my sales pitch. At that moment, I had no idea yet. I had no idea how much meeting her would impact my life. My name is Charlie. Until about a year ago, I thought I was walking a fairly smooth path in life. I graduated from a prestigious high school and got into a well-known university straight away. Then returned to my hometown to join the Riverside branch of Clearwater Bakery. Even though friends and professors from my university told me I could find a better job with my degree, I had a strong reason to return home. My mother was often ill, and I wanted to be there for her as much as possible. My father had passed away before I started elementary school, and my mother raised me on her own ever since. When my mother collapsed at work during my university years, I decided I would work in my hometown. Clearwater Bakery is a nationwide company, but their local products are developed and manufactured at the branch offices. I was fortunate enough to be assigned to the product development department, as I had hoped. Being a local myself, I had a good sense of the community's food preferences. Initially, I assisted senior employees in product development, but after 3 years, I began taking on more central roles and projects. It was around my 31st birthday, about a year ago, that I stumbled into trouble. I had a disagreement with my direct supervisor, David, who was the team leader for new product development. I believe we should use locally grown pears. It would support local consumption and the quality is vastly superior. I expressed my opinion about using pears in a new tart-style pastry. David furrowed his brow and said, "We can't afford any more costs. Our pastries are already more expensive than competitors because of the quality. If we get left behind in the price competition, it'll hurt our sales." He insisted on using cheaper imported pears. My colleagues understood my point but advised me to follow David's lead. Had I heeded their advice, things might have turned out differently. However, I was adamant about using local pears. As I toured local farms in line with our company's policy of supporting local consumption, I grew determined to incorporate their produce. Despite my persistence, David forced a team vote and his opinion prevailed. Not only that, but he also accused me of deliberately obstructing product development and demanded my transfer from the department. Coincidentally, there was an opening in the sales department at that time, sealing my fate. Responding to David's complaint, the management transferred me to the third sales division. Despite being removed from product development, I wasn't disheartened. In fact, I was determined to excel in sales to earn more money for my mother's medical bills. But that determination backfired, and I soon fell out of favor with my new boss. 3 days after joining the third sales division, I went on a sales call with my manager, Jim. Jim offered to show me the ropes, as I had no experience in sales. The key is to make regular visits. Even if we don't see immediate results, our persistence could eventually lead to sales. Jim explained as we headed to a drugstore that sold not just medicines and daily necessities, but also food items. Nervous on my first sales call, I tried the sales pitch techniques I had learned over the past 3 days. I leveraged my product development background to highlight the benefits of our new products. The client listened with a smile, but Jim interrupted me, saying, "Stop with the self-centered sales talk. They're taking time out for us." We quickly left the store after Jim apologized to the client. Apparently, the purpose of today's visit was to greet the client and thank them for their continued business. And Jim had already settled the sales negotiations over the phone. In other words, I had wasted their time by rehashing an already decided deal. Honestly, I can't trust someone like you with sales. You're on menial tasks from tomorrow, Jim declared. Since that failure, I haven't been taken on any sales calls despite being in the third sales division. Unable to quit the job due to my mother's situation, I've spent the past year doing menial tasks. One day, a female employee transferred to the third sales division from Clearwater Bakery's headquarters. My name is Susan. My title is assistant manager, but I'm new here, so I look forward to your guidance and support. The female employee, who was more than 10 centimeters taller than me in her pumps, was named Susan. With well-maintained black hair tied in a ponytail, she was a striking beauty with distinctive almond-shaped eyes. She had a gentle demeanor, always responding with a warm smile no matter who spoke to her. However, when it came to work, her expression turned sharp and she spoke clearly, leaving many employees wide-eyed at the contrast. Rumors among the staff suggested that Susan was an elite from the headquarters. And she is here to learn managerial duties while overseeing the branch's operations as an assistant manager. Indeed, shortly after her arrival, she brought a fresh approach to our sales team by calmly suggesting, "I have a proposal," and introduced a sales method used at the headquarters. Susan was also a graduate of a prestigious university, but she had lived a completely different life from mine. I perceived her as a distant figure, so I was surprised when she approached me on her third day during lunch break. "You're Charlie, right? Why aren't you going on sales calls?" she asked gently. Although she seemed to be around my age, her title as assistant manager placed her above me. Determined not to be disrespectful, I straightened up and replied nervously, "Well, I'm mainly in charge of menial tasks." When she asked what I meant by that, I explained how I had not been taken on any sales calls since my blunder a year ago. She nodded slightly and said, "I see. Thank you," before leaving. I thought our lives would never intersect again, feeling a bit disappointed. However, over the next week, Susan spoke to me frequently, whether it was for menial tasks or not. Her main topic was the limited edition products developed at the Riverside branch. She thought I could provide detailed insights on local products despite being in the sales division, given my background in product development. Of course, I know the product data, but hearing from the person who developed them is invaluable, she said, smiling brightly like a child while savoring a local bread. I was grateful to Susan for treating me without prejudice, despite my ostracized status since my failure a year ago. 10 days after Susan's arrival, she directly asked Jim if she could go out on sales calls herself, having learned the managerial tasks under him. Jim hesitated for a moment but then agreed, "You've completed our training curriculum, so there's no issue." "All right, someone will guide you." Susan waved her hand dismissively and said, "I'll go with Charlie." It's a waste to leave talent unused. I'd like him to experience sales. Is that all right, Jim? With a gentle yet insistent smile, she persuaded Jim. Reluctantly, Jim sighed and said, Charlie, it's your turn. Don't screw up, instructing me in a resigned tone. Surprised by this unexpected opportunity, I stood up and said, yes. I'll get ready right away. Gathering the necessary materials before heading out of the office with Susan. Naturally, I took the driver's seat in the company car. From the passenger seat, Susan, looking at her phone, directed, We've got an appointment with Parker's Market. But there is still some time. So let's stop by a nearby branch first. As long as we make it to their headquarters by 11. Her clear and decisive tone was a stark contrast to her previous gentle manner, almost overwhelming me. This must be her work mode. Parker's Market was a local supermarket chain centered in my area. Susan, who had recently moved here, hadn't yet had a chance to thoroughly check out Parker's Market. I want to see what products they have with my own eyes, she said passionately, prompting me to park at one of their branches. After spending about 20 minutes browsing the store, we hurried to the Parker's Market headquarters. Despite the sudden visit, the store's representative, John, graciously welcomed us into the meeting room. After exchanging pleasantries and presenting our gifts, we prepared to start the business discussion. Thank you for having us. My mouth was dry, and I couldn't speak as smoothly as I wanted. The memory of my failure from a year ago haunted me. If I failed again, I might lose my job this time. Feeling anxious, I felt Susan gently pat my back. I recalled the words she had said to me in the car on our way here. If anything happens, I'll back you up. Give it your all. Don't worry, I've got your back. Wanting to repay Susan for giving me this chance, I steeled myself and presented the prepared materials to John. Today, we've brought a new bread we're planning to launch. As you can see in the data, it has a stronger wheat aroma and a more elastic texture than our previous products. When I signaled to Susan, she promptly took out samples of the bread, cut them into bite-sized pieces, and offered them to John. John nodded as he tasted the bread. Indeed, wheat lovers will find this irresistible. The texture is excellent. It should be great toasted as well. Sensing his interest, I decided to use the knowledge I had gained during our visit to the Parker's Market branch. Parker's Market sells vegetable jams made collaboratively by local farmers, right? I think these jams would pair wonderfully with this bread. What do you think? As if she had been waiting for my words, Susan laid out the 5 types of vegetable jams we had purchased earlier at Parker's Market on the table. John sampled each jam on the bite-sized pieces of bread and said, This is excellent. These jams, which are made to highlight the natural flavors of the ingredients with minimal seasoning, pair wonderfully with your bread's strong wheat aroma. This is fantastic. I'd love to sell them as a set. He acknowledged the great pairing of the bread and vegetable jams. Sensing this was my chance, I began presenting one new product after another to John. I not only covered the information in the materials but also delved into more detailed explanations, which made John nod in appreciation multiple times. After nearly 2 hours of discussion, he concluded, Thank you for introducing such wonderful products. We'll be ordering not just the bread but also a variety of other products in greater quantities. We look forward to working with you more closely. Not only had we achieved our primary goal of selling the bread, but we also succeeded in increasing the variety and quantity of products Parker's Market would carry. I stood there, mouth agape at the unexpected outcome. Susan lightly patted my back and said, Thank you for your continued support. We look forward to working with you, bowing her head. Following her lead, I bowed as well, saying, We appreciate your support, savoring the success of our sales effort. On the drive back to the Riverside branch, Susan voiced her admiration. I knew you were capable, but I didn't expect you to be able to pitch the products so well, especially when I called on you so suddenly. How were you able to explain the products so fluently? It turned out that Susan wanted me to re-experience sales as a stepping stone for my return to the field. But she hadn't expected such a successful outcome. I still keep in touch with the guys in the product development department. They often ask me to taste new products during the development process. Even as a newbie, they trusted my palate, I explained. Despite being transferred to the sales department, my colleagues in product development still saw me as one of their own, often seeking my advice on new products. The breads we pitched today at Parker's Market were ones I had tasted extensively during their development, allowing me to provide John with detailed information not included in the materials. I see, that explains it. In any case, you can return to the office with your head held high now, Susan murmured with a proud expression on her face. I was glad to see her happy. I was more pleased about the fact that Susan was happy than about the success in sales. After we returned to the office, Susan reported our success to the members of the third sales division, leaving them astonished. But Susan remained composed and said, "If you doubt it, feel free to contact John at Parker's Market. He'll tell you how excellent the presentation was." With a calm smile, she declared. Then she glanced at me and continued, "Sure, he might have failed once, but he has the skills to succeed in negotiations like today. Instead of writing him off for a single mistake, isn't it important to create an environment where talents like Charlie can thrive?" she asked Jim. Thanks to Susan's advocacy, I was allowed to start going on sales calls with the other employees from the next day. For the next 6 months, I worked diligently to make the most of the opportunities Susan had given me. I didn't think I had ever worked as hard, not even during my university entrance exams or my time in product development. As a result, 6 months later, I had achieved one of the top sales records in the third sales division. Around that time, I heard a rumor. Susan was going to return to the headquarters soon. If that happened, I might never see her again. Feeling desperate, I invited her to dinner one day during lunch break. Under the pretense of formally thanking her for giving me a chance to go on a sales call after a year. I expected her to decline, but she agreed with a smile. After work, we sat across from each other at a chic French restaurant near the station. "Thanks to the opportunity you gave me, I've been able to establish myself as a member of the sales team. I'm truly grateful," I said, bowing deeply shortly after our toast. Susan chuckled softly and shook her head. "I only gave you the chance to take the first step. Everything else is thanks to your hard work and talent. You did an excellent job." She praised me gently, in a tone different from her work mode. Her more natural voice made my heart race as I asked the question I had always wanted to ask. "Why did you give me that chance back then? I've always wondered what made you take notice of a menial worker like me." Susan fell silent, gazing into space thoughtfully. Then, widening her almond-shaped eyes, she said with a slightly playful tone, "Maybe because you reminded me of my younger self." She began to share her own experiences. "I used to play volleyball in school. With my build and decent athleticism, I was quickly picked as the ace when I started high school. But not everyone liked that, and I faced some harassment from classmates and seniors. As our wine refills arrived, we both took a sip." Susan continued after a slow exhale. "One senior spoke up during a meeting, asking why they were dragging me down when everyone knew I had the skills. She said helping me perform at my best would lead the team to victory." Susan paused, frowning slightly, and then shook her head. That senior had lost her starting position to me. When I later asked why she spoke up for me, she simply said it was the right thing to do. I was deeply moved and decided I would always help someone in a similar situation. So that's how it was. When I expressed my gratitude for her sharing this, Susan waved her hand dismissively and said, "It's really just my own satisfaction. So don't worry about it. More importantly, I assigned you to that negotiation because I believed you had the skills. Based on what I heard about your work in product development and as a menial worker." She had done her research on me without my knowing. Despite her busy schedule, she took the time to look into a single subordinate's background, truly exemplifying what a manager should be. Before I could express this to her, she clapped her hands and said, "Oh, by the way, I heard that the product development team is rallying to have you back. It seems they're ready to take you in. Are you planning to return?" She asked about a topic that had only been discussed internally. Surprised that she knew about it, I replied, "Actually, I'm torn. I know the product development work is fulfilling, but I really enjoy my sales work now. And above all," I swallowed hard, just like on that day 6 months ago, and encouraged myself. "I would regret it if I didn't say it now." With the determination to avoid that regret, I looked Susan straight in the eye and said, "Right now, I don't want to be apart from you. I want to stay in the sales department because I want to be with you for as long as possible. I expressed my honest feelings directly. Perhaps shocked by my words, Susan's face turned red as she said, "I'm surprised. Can you explain that a bit more? I don't want to misunderstand in a weird way." She pressed her tear-filled eyes. Worried, I explained that my initial feelings were admiration and respect, but as we worked together, the time spent with her became invaluable. I earnestly conveyed that now I wanted to walk through life together with her. Susan, after taking a deep breath and looking at me, said, "I'm going back to the headquarters soon. When that happens, I'll suggest to both the headquarters and Riverside branch that you be assigned to the headquarters as well." Her statement confirmed the rumors and surprised me with the proposal of being assigned to the headquarters. "What does that mean exactly?" I asked, puzzled. Susan raised her hand to signal me to wait and, with a gentle smile, explained, "Charlie, you once said that if you ever returned to product development, you would want to be involved in developing nationwide products. Not just local ones. The headquarters product development department is looking for new talent." When I mentioned a promising employee with experience in both product development and sales, they were eager to have you. As I listened to her, I felt a surge of excitement. It reminded me of a lunch conversation we once had. I had come to understand the joy of sales, but I still wanted to return to product development someday. My true desire was to be involved in developing nationwide products for Clearwater Bakery. I'm very pleased with the proposal. But how does this relate to what I just confessed? I asked, still confused. She smiled wryly and said, "You're surprisingly dense. It means I feel the same way you do. Let's be a couple and work together at the headquarters. Of course, I remember you telling me about your mother, so I won't force you if it's too difficult." She looked at me with lowered eyes. Amazed that my heartfelt confession had succeeded, I bowed vigorously, saying, "Thank you very much," only to hit my forehead on the table. Susan, stifling a laugh at my clumsiness, gently touched my reddened forehead and said, "Charlie, you're unexpectedly clumsy. That's cute too. Let's get to know each other better from now on." She gently caressed my reddened forehead. After becoming Susan's boyfriend, I was deeply troubled about the headquarters assignment. Her proposal was extremely attractive, and I truly wanted to work at the headquarters. From the moment she mentioned it, I had been eager to start at the headquarters. However, I felt guilty about leaving my ailing mother behind. Seeing my dilemma, Susan made an unexpected proposal. "Let's talk to your mother about everything. I'd like to meet her too." With that, she came to the apartment where I lived with my mother. My mother was surprised by the sudden introduction of my girlfriend, but she quickly took a liking to Susan's straightforward personality and said, "He's a bit unreliable, but please take care of him," clearly pleased. After the introductions, Susan made another surprising statement. "Ma'am, would you consider moving to Tokyo with us? In Tokyo, there would be more hospital options. Of course, if you prefer to stay here, we will respect that. But I don't want to give up on either him or my job. If I was worried about leaving my mother, why not take her with us?" It was an idea that had never occurred to me. Explaining the details to my astonished mother, Susan patiently outlined everything. Listening and nodding, my mother turned to me and said, "Don't worry about me. You two go to Tokyo. You've done enough for me." She took a bank book from the living room cabinet and handed it to me. "This is the money you gave me for hospital bills. I've saved it all here, so take it with you. If you came to introduce her to me, it means you're serious about getting married. You'll need money for various things, so here you go." My mother had been saving the money I gave her for hospital bills, planning to return it to me one day. Refusing it would be like rejecting her kindness. Accepting the bank book with both hands, I said, "Thank you. I'll do my best." Feeling a warmth in my chest, I declared my resolve. Meanwhile, Susan, with teary eyes, took my mother's hand and said, "Thank you, ma'am." With a trembling voice, I thanked my mother. Assigned to the headquarters, Susan and I achieved outstanding results in our respective departments, earning recognition for our work in product development and sales. The success I found in developing several hit products was largely due to my experiences in both regional product development and sales. 1 year after starting at the headquarters, Susan and I shared the same last name and began living under one roof. Now, Susan was taking the vacation days she had hardly used before, preparing for the future. Less than a month after our wedding, we learned that she was expecting. I want to make sure everything is perfect for this baby. Don't worry, your mother will be coming soon. So, you can go to work with peace of mind. Susan said as she saw me off, already looking every bit a mother. Gently caressing her belly, I said, "All right, I'm off," and stood on tiptoe to kiss my wife. Determined to bring happiness to Susan and our child who changed my life, I set off to work with renewed purpose. I could feel my sense of responsibility as a husband and a father growing stronger every day. Please don't end up like this old man. He's a disgrace to the company. Among the 77 new hires, my manager, Kyle, directed this comment at me. I understand. I'll withdraw from the speech. Good. I'll handle the speech. You stay out of the way. I left the induction ceremony. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing before the alarm. It was the president, Mr. Howard, calling. When I called back, he urgently asked me to come to the office. Wondering what was going on, I headed to the president's office and found Mr. Howard, the executive vice president Timothy, and Kyle there. Kyle was staring at a newspaper, visibly shaking. Sorry to bother you so early. Sean, did you see any news online or in the papers last night or this morning? When I said I hadn't, Mr. Howard handed me the local newspaper Kyle was reading. Instantly, a very noticeable photo and headline caught my eye. My name is Sean. I work at a new kind of advertising agency that uses social media for PR. I joined this company when I was 41. I've been able to do the work I've always wanted, and before I knew it, 6 months had passed. My direct supervisor, Kyle, constantly makes snide remarks like your methods are outdated and that won't resonate with anyone. But I didn't have time to care about that and worked tirelessly. Next month, I was given a significant task, a small speech at the orientation. Apparently, I was recommended by Mr. Howard and Timothy for being someone who joined early and excelled. They wanted me to convey that regardless of age, it's possible to take on new challenges using past experiences and skills. The day of the orientation arrived. The event proceeded smoothly in a hotel banquet hall. The orientation, starting at 4 p.m., included not just new hires but also Mr. Howard, Timothy, and other executives. Being there as a regular employee felt rather awkward. I was told I could skip the dinner following the orientation and go straight home if I wanted. The sight of 77 new hires was quite impressive. Kyle was the master of ceremonies. He is apparently related to Mr. Howard. Despite being in his early 30s, he boasts about his position as a manager and often makes sarcastic comments to me. He said things like, "Mid-career hires don't get promoted much," or "You probably look down on me because I'm younger." That's ridiculous. Age doesn't matter. It's only natural that those with skills rise to higher positions, and it's fair that I, as a mid-career hire, am in a lower position than him. When I said that, Kyle smiled contentedly. It's not that I don't feel irritated. But my years of experience have taught me that it's best to keep a moderate distance from such bosses. Maintaining a non-confrontational distance is important. Kyle's MC was very smooth. After the president's address and company explanations, it was time for my speech as the voice of a senior employee. At that moment, Mr. Howard and Timothy were whispered to by other employees and left. Apparently, they had tight schedules. Good luck. Don't be too nervous. Just talk about what you've learned, Sean. As they left, both Mr. Howard and Timothy encouraged me. Their words of encouragement were very uplifting, but I felt my heart rate rising even more. My hands were sweating with nerves. Next, we'd like to hear from a mid-career old man who joined a bit earlier than you all. The room buzzed with murmurs. What did he just say? Old man? Did I mishear that? But Kyle's eyes were on me. His expression was a smug grin that seemed to say, "I'm going to humiliate you in front of everyone." Judging by that look, he definitely meant it for me. Hey, you heard me, old man. At least you should respond. He continued in a disdainful tone. Yes. Sorry, everyone. This guy has no sense of common decency or rules. Kyle shrugged as if to amuse the crowd. The new hires exchanged uncertain murmurs, unsure if they should laugh. Of course. There's nothing funny about this. They don't understand the dynamics between Kyle and me, so it's natural they'd be confused. I had no choice. Suppressing my rising anger with all my might, I stood up. "Excuse me, may I start my speech?" "What? You're seriously going to do your speech?" Not understanding his tone, I stood there frozen. Then Kyle boldly began to insult me. This guy supposedly got hired for his experience, but honestly, he was just a filler. Our company doesn't usually hire mid-career folks. Kyle sought agreement from the other managers, including Thomas. No, that's not true. I heard Mr. Howard vouched for his excellence, which is why he was hired. The other executives nodded in agreement with Thomas's rebuttal. They all appreciated my work. They were kind people who subtly protected me from Kyle's tyranny. Oh yes, you guys only see the surface. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Kyle continued undeterred. This old man is over 40. There's no way someone like him can bring fresh ideas like you young folks. With all due respect, I've done my best over these past 6 months. Effort and results are two different things. I've had the opportunity to be involved in major projects. Oh, you mean the one I generously handed to you out of pity? I wanted to vehemently disagree. I was assigned that project because Kyle's proposal wasn't accepted, so it was handed to me urgently. Since I had to change the fundamental concept, he was furious and accused me of tarnishing his reputation. That memory is still fresh. That incident was only a month ago. Kyle had always been spiteful, but in the last month, his remarks had intensified. No doubt, that incident fueled his desire to torment me even more. But, using the important orientation to do this while Mr. Howard and Timothy were absent was unforgivable. I had brushed off his comments until now, but being humiliated in front of so many people made my blood boil. Maybe I thought he was just young and inexperienced. By assuming that, I might be at fault for letting his attack slide. I should have reported his behavior to other employees or bosses earlier on. Now, there's no one to stop Kyle's rampage. I thought about just walking out. But then I glanced toward the back of the room and saw panicked employees. They were desperately signaling to me, trying to convey something. The employees were vigorously shaking their heads and making an X with their arms in front of their bodies. What are they doing? At that moment, I remembered an important fact. This is really bad. If this continues, it will definitely turn out poorly. I realized I had to stop Kyle's verbal abuse somehow. I approached Kyle and tried to turn off the microphone. What are you doing? Don't touch it. I understand you have things you want to say, but this isn't the right time. Please, I'm asking you. Maybe my calmness irritated him. Kyle got even more heated. Shut up. Why are you the one giving the speech instead of me, you loser? Calm down, Kyle. Shut up. Don't you dare boss me around, you lowly employee. Kyle continued to hurl insults like idiot and fool at me as I desperately tried to stop him. It doesn't matter how much you try to communicate if the other person isn't willing to listen. Why should I be the one to stop him despite being insulted like this? These thoughts crossed my mind when... Everyone, please don't end up like this old man. He's a disgrace to the company. The eyes of the 77 new hires bore into me. I couldn't take it anymore. I see, I won't stop you anymore. I withdraw from giving the speech. That's right, I'll handle the speech, you stay out of the way. I left the venue immediately. Of course, I didn't attend the dinner party after the orientation. The next morning, I woke up to see a missed call from Mr. Howard. It was just past 6 a.m. Wondering what was going on, I called back. Sorry about what happened at the orientation. I heard my nephew caused trouble after I left. No, it's fine. Mr. Howard apologized sincerely. And about that, it has become a big issue. What? Can you come to the office as soon as possible? I'll credit you for the overtime, please come to my office. Certainly, I'll be there by 7. I hurriedly got ready. Walking at twice my usual pace, I arrived at the office. In the president's office, Mr. Howard, Timothy, and a pale-faced Kyle were waiting. Kyle was trembling as he read the newspaper. Mr. Howard and Timothy were glaring at him sternly. Good morning. Sorry to bother you so early. Sean, did you see any news online or in the papers last night or this morning? I shook my head immediately. I went home in a terrible mood and fell asleep without checking anything. But what does that have to do with anything? I glanced at Kyle, who looked pale, and a thought came to mind. Is it possible that the orientation was covered in the news? Kyle suddenly looked up at me. His face was a mix of anger and panic. Mr. Howard handed me the local newspaper he was holding. A large headline caught my eyes. Middle-aged man harassed and withdraws speech at orientation. Former employee names culprit. This is serious. The article featured a photo of Kyle insulting me, detailing his actions at the orientation. Although his eyes were blacked out, it was obvious that it was Kyle. I read through the article. Harassment incident at a company's orientation. In an era where corporate compliance is crucial, a shocking event has come to light. The stage was set at the orientation of an emerging advertising agency. The victim was a man in his 40s, identified as Mr. S. During the orientation, when he attempted to give a speech, he was publicly insulted by Manager K, who was in his 30s, and had to leave the scene. A former employee testified that Manager K had been harassing Mr. S for some time. This issue has also spread across the internet and social media. The company is currently conducting an internal investigation, and if Manager K's actions are confirmed, they plan to take strict measures. There's no doubt about it. It's about what happened yesterday. How did this happen, and how did the newspaper get this story? Kyle, I told you yesterday to stop your comments. He nodded weakly. The orientation was live-streamed on our company's official video sharing platform. What? Being a social media-focused advertising agency, our company had recently gained a lot of attention. We decided to live-stream the orientation to showcase our company to a wider audience. Kyle had attended the meeting where this was decided, but he seemed to have no memory of it. As usual, he might have been dozing off. According to Mr. Howard and Timothy, viewers who watched the live stream started posting on social media about the crazy incident happening right now, drawing even more attention to the orientation. As a result, many people saw Kyle's insulting remarks and my withdrawal from the speech in real time. It caused a massive uproar on social media. I opened our company's official video sharing platform on my phone. The orientation video had garnered a lot of comments. Isn't it over for a company with a manager like this? Poor Sean. The company should take responsibility. This is the age of social media. Anything that happens gets captured and shared immediately. Why didn't you stop me? I tried to cut the microphone, but you kept going, Kyle. No way. Oh. The employees at the back were shaking their heads the whole time. You finally noticed. Yes. And no one informed you afterward? Kyle fell silent. That was the answer. He had no allies in the company where he threw his weight around. He probably finished the orientation without knowing anything, and now he is here. And the self-inflicted misfortunes that befell Kyle did not end there. Kyle, is this true? The social media posts detailed Kyle's numerous misdeeds. Falsifying expenses, pressuring subordinates to resign, claiming good ideas as his own. Kyle's eyes widened in shock. Sean, is this your revenge? No, it's not me. This is true. Why would I waste my time posting about Kyle's wrongdoings on social media? Reading business books would be far more productive. This is all because you got hired as a mid-career recruit. Our company doesn't usually hire mid-career people. You're just a useless, arrogant old man. That's something I can't ignore. What? Uncle, why are you? Stop calling me uncle at the company. I was the one who interviewed and decided to hire him. Why? This old guy from a different industry is useless. Yet everyone listens to him? It makes me sick. As Kyle pointed a finger at me, I began to understand. So, that's how he felt about me. Kyle, I may have come from a different industry, but I consider myself quite knowledgeable about advertising strategies using social media. What? What are you talking about? An old man like you can't handle social media. His words were harsh. But I knew that once he saw what I had to show, his opinion might change. I opened my phone and showed him a certain social media account. That account, it's always going viral. Yes. It's the one I manage. What? Even while working in a completely different field, I couldn't give up one dream. I wanted to create advertisements with entertainment value that could reach people around the world. It all started with a small event. In middle school, I entered a poster contest hosted by an advertising agency and won the grand prize. Seeing my poster displayed prominently at the train station, people passing by would look at it. Some even talked about the product advertised on the poster, saying it looked interesting. That was the beginning of my dream. But dreams don't come true easily. There are many people with skills and passion like mine. I couldn't get a job in my desired field right out of college. Even so, I couldn't abandon my old dream and kept trying different things on social media, sharing information, and helping to promote products, while waiting for a chance. That work caught the eye of Mr. Howard, leading to my mid-career hiring. Why didn't you mention that earlier? I wanted to demonstrate my abilities regardless of my background. Damn it. If I'd known, I would have taken all your projects for myself. But I trashed most of them. I frowned. Most of my proposals never got approved. So that was all his doing. I turned a blind eye because you're my nephew, but I didn't expect you to be this rotten. There are also social media posts claiming most of Kyle's work was done by his subordinates. Should we conduct an internal investigation, Mr. Howard? Of course. Verify the truth. Sean, I'm really sorry. Not at all. I felt overwhelmed as Mr. Howard bowed to me. I only took you in because your parents begged me, but this is unacceptable. You're fired, Kyle. What? Wait, Uncle. Why? Harassment and embezzlement. There's no way I can overlook such behavior. Kyle collapsed to the floor, stunned. The results of the internal investigation came out. Kyle had harassed many other employees besides me. It was also revealed that he had been embezzling company funds. Needless to say, he was fired. Now, Kyle is infamous and can't walk outside without being chased and labeled as the insulting manager by many people. With his real name and face exposed on social media, Kyle's reputation in the industry plummeted to rock bottom. I heard through the grapevine that his parents covered the money he embezzled. They also abandoned him, saying, "We can't take care of you anymore." Because of his actions, he can't find a new job. Given his excessive harassment and embezzlement, it's only natural. No company would want to hire him when a simple search of his name on social media reveals all his misdeeds. He is now reportedly financially and mentally exhausted. I've heard that he's become extremely paranoid about being watched and has withdrawn from society. He's also financially distressed and in debt. On the other hand, I was appointed as Kyle's successor. Thanks to social media, my past achievement of winning the grand prize in the advertising agency's poster contest became widely known. I received many words of encouragement. The company has also started hiring mid-career employees. A fresh breeze of change is definitely in the air. The new hires who attended the orientation show no signs of mocking me like Kyle did, and they are eager to learn. I genuinely believe they are all very straightforward and highly receptive. I plan to pass on everything I've experienced to the next generation. I want to continue spreading the message that age doesn't matter, and you can achieve your dreams if you don't give up.